Hey everybody, Tony T with a lamp video. And look, the bathrobe is back. Oh, the comfy robe. It's so comfy. Anyhow, I wasn't sure what to do for a fourth video tonight. It's been kind of a lazy Sunday, just getting some house stuff done, did a little food shopping. But as always, I watch The Fourth Age with RJ. Great channel if you haven't seen it. And he again was talking about the nature of hero, and he touched on something interesting which I had touched on some kind of parallel, and that was this idea that you can't write a story if you don't accept reality. And his concept was that the progressives really live in almost an altered reality that isn't real, which is why they write terrible stories. And that really struck me because I had always said that in comics, part of the problem was they've allowed their universe to kind of unravel. And without a universe that makes sense, the Marvel and DC universes have kind of fallen apart in a lot of ways. They used to have an incredible backbone. I mean, back in the day, they used to do a lot of continuity work, between the editors, and you'd read a story and it would make reference to another story and it would tell you the issue, and it was great. And then they kind of let that all slide. And I think I talked about that in another video too. So, but when RJ said the progressives, their lack of acknowledgement of reality, that kind of clicked for me, because I was like, yeah, it was bigger than just what I had thought. It is the progressives in Hollywood living in this fantasy world that they've kind of sort of created for themselves. And then right around that same time, I was on Twitter and somebody posted a link to a clip from a new cartoon. It's called like Super Powerful Girl Squad or something like that. I forget what it was on. Maybe HBO Max, maybe, I want to say Adult Swim, but I don't think it was Adult Swim. But it was two girls with clothes sitting in a bathtub with the shower running, talking about very woke ideas. And the camera kind of panning over to the other girl, whose name was Riot Girl, and then she said something like, down with capitalism and the patriarchy. It was completely ideologically obsessed. It's the sort of cartoon no one was asking for, but someone in Hollywood felt, oh, we gotta make this. People are gonna love this. And there's just nothing to it. I mean, it really just exists to make fun of at this point. And it struck me that what RJ said was very true. It was, you can't, and this is something I knew too, you can't do a parody of something if the thing you're parodying isn't really a rock solid thing. So for a long time, SNL, back in the day, I'm talking far back, would do parodies of TV commercials. And also the shared experience comes into play there too. So in the 70s and 80s, when they did the TV commercial parody, it usually really hit home because there were only 3 channels and pretty much everybody saw the same commercials. So when they did John Belushi did a commercial, and it was something called Swill. It was some kind of water, but it came out of like the Hudson, and he started pouring it out into a glass, and it was real thick, and it had like a garbage in it, and it was just sort of slowly coming out, and they started to play the song Anticipation, and that had been in a Heinz commercial for ketchup, and that it was pouring out slow. So right away, everybody knew exactly what they were parodying because everybody had seen that commercial. And nowadays that just doesn't happen. So the commercial parodies are harder to do. They're much harder to do because sometimes like they do them and it's like, well, what was that? Was that a parody of something? It's a commercial that nobody saw, or maybe they only saw in the New York area, or that they made up that was kind of like a commercial someone saw 10 years ago. So the shared experience is kind of gone, and this goes back to the atomization of audiences, which I've talked about too, and which is another factor. So not only is it that progressives, who mostly dominate the entertainment industry, are making stories based in a reality they want to happen, not one that actually exists, getting further and further away from truth, and which is why they can't do comedy, because comedy is very close to the truth. It has to know the truth in order to be funny. But the audiences are becoming atomized, right? So you could do a commercial parody, for instance, here, if you picked a commercial that was running in South Jersey that everybody here knew. But that commercial parody wouldn't play in, say, Tennessee, where nobody would know what the hell you were talking about. They wouldn't have seen the original commercial, so probably wouldn't resonate. It wouldn't be as funny. And with the atomization of audiences and the destruction of the movie industry, and to some extent the TV industry, although the TV industry is kind of holding on because it works better on the internet. And what we're seeing here is what happened in radio to a large degree, and even in newspapers. There are now so many avenues via the internet. Literally everybody has a channel, and as Andy Warhol once said, everybody's going to be famous for 15 minutes. Now we can actually measure that on YouTube in terms of your hits and your followers. And even the YouTube stars, and I was just saying this to my friend Corey on the phone tonight, even the YouTube stars are now becoming too big, right? So right now, movie celebrities are going away to the dodo. They're done. The days of big-time movie stars that everybody has seen and everybody wants to be a part of is disappearing. It's just disappearing. There are people that are called celebrities. They're not even celebrities. Most people don't even know who they are, but they're pushed as celebrities because they're probably at a particular agency that's connected to a particular network, that's connected to a couple of production houses, and they're trying to push somebody. And then they're putting them in a bunch of different things. So you think, oh, this person's pretty famous. Yeah, oh, I saw him in this, I saw him in that. But in reality, it's sort of an artificial creation of Hollywood. And that's kind of always been around, but not like it is now. Like now it's almost like they have to do that. They have to do that, or you kind of can't even get famous. It's very hard to. I talked about that woman who's on The Mandalorian. She's sort of gotten famous simply by, standing up to the Twitter mob and being the only one on The Mandalorian. She's on The Mandalorian, and, she seems to be conservative, or at least not left. And they're blasting her for it. But because of that, it's like heightening her image, which leads me to believe that will be the future, the anti-woke. It'll be, oh, you better get out there and stir the pot and these idiots on Twitter so you get some exposure, get them all pissed off, and then they'll start talking about you. That may become a thing. But with the atomization of audiences, combined with these progressives just basically destroying what they had, audience, I think what you're going to get is YouTube stars that are very rarely big, very rarely millions of fans, but actually have, say, the old formula in comics. The old formula in comics or web comics was if you have 10,000 regular or 10,000 fans, let's say, 10% of them will actually buy your merchandise, and that'll get you enough money so you can live. So you need about 10,000 fans, and then you have 1,000 hardcore fans, and then they keep you going until you can build even further. I think the YouTube formula is going to be something like you need about 25,000 fans, I would say. I would say it's going to be higher because YouTube's a little more, what's the word, fickle. I've noticed that my subscriptions goes back and forth. Like right now it's heading up, thank you, because I had a really good video title called Hot Take, Joe Biden is Falling Apart. Everybody seems to like that, and I'm getting a lot of hits on it, so thank you. But it goes back and forth, and my actual views tend to be, I have like almost 2,000 subs, but my actual views are like 50 to 100, maybe 200. A really good video, I get 300, something like that. It's going up, but it is what it is. You slowly make strides. But if I get to say 25,000 subs, that means my videos will regularly get probably about 2,500 hits, so like 2,000 or 3,000 hits, and then once in a while I get something that's bigger that pushes me up a little more. And with those kinds of numbers, maybe I could make like the equivalent of minimum wage. I'm not sure how much that would bring in. Right now I'm bringing in like monetarily based on the videos I'm doing, maybe like a couple of bucks a day. So maybe that would bring me closer to, like $100 a day or $50 a day, something like that. Like $100 a day, that would be pretty good. That'd be like a minimum wage job. So I can almost live on that with my low overhead because I'm very poor. But depending on where YouTube is 5 years from now. But everybody will kind of have that, right? So there'll be no real TV stations anymore. It'll just be endless channels of randos doing whatever they do, which to me is more interesting. It's actually sort of my dream, because back in the day when I was in New York one time, I discovered New York Public Access, which was very much like old YouTube and like what BitChute is now, just like craziness all over the TV. You had the Naked Talk Show and bands, strange bands, punk bands you never heard of playing, and just people trying to do crazy TV shows that made 0 sense or railing against politics or whatever. And it was cool. And there was a lot of like sex talk phone people as sponsors, but it was very entertaining. And the reason it was entertaining is you never knew what was going to come next. You just didn't know, because it was just insanity on your television. And yeah, there were a few things scheduled, but sometimes that, whoever was supposed to be on just doesn't show up, and they'd have to put another show on that they had on tape, and they'd just throw another show on, and you'd be like, what the hell is this? And that's kind of the way I see YouTube and the internet in general. It's like, what the hell is this? Oh, here's something new. You're always discovering shows on YouTube. Even though now they're kind of ruining it, it's still sort of got that spirit to it. But I think that's being slowly transferred to sites like BitChute and a few others like Brighteon and whatnot. And they're going to get big. And really, right now, there are millions of YouTubers, but I still don't think it's kind of like most of the country. It's some of the country. It's a good portion of the country. But, when we get to the point where 100, 150 million, like half the country, generally watch YouTube or YouTube-like videos, like this stuff, all the time, they watch it for their news and entertainment, like, that'll really change things, That'll really drive people's attention spans to like nothing. because it's going to be like, entertain me. 2 minutes in, this isn't entertaining. I'm unsubscribing. I'm going somewhere else. You know, it's like, you need like constant, input or stimulation to a certain degree, depending on the mood you're in. Because sometimes I subscribe to people and then I get, I don't know why I subscribed to this. And then I unsubscribe. And then a few weeks later I go, oh, whatever happened to that guy? I got to go back and find him. And then I do, and I resubscribe because it's like, oh yeah, I should just have him in my queue. I have a bunch of guys that in my queue that I rarely watch, but sometimes I do because sometimes I'm in the mood for it, right? So anyhow, just to put a capper on this gigantic ramble, what I'm seeing is this sort of disintegration in the mainstream where they literally can't tell a story worth a damn because they're like the politicians. They're so tone deaf to their audience. They're actually existing in another world where they imagine their audience is, but the audience isn't there. So they're in the world of super progressives, Twitterati, Tumblr people who live in Frisco and LA who are like super, super woke, very smug and self-righteous, and they're making shows for them. And those people don't even watch those shows. That's the best part. So that's all going to fall to pieces in the next few years. And they'll have to compete with people who are just making regular videos. And those people are going to make videos that you want to see. I subscribe to alter.net, which is a short film horror thing. Like if you want horror, it's got short film, like all these little short films, horror films, they're great. And, it's what I want. It's things that I want, and I want it, and it delivers, and that's why I love it. And they're going to have to go back to that. And it won't work at first because they're going to have to eventually figure out what their advantage is in the market. And the only advantage they have right now is they have tons of money, and television still has a bit of an audience. So the clock is ticking, because if they squander all that money and all that audience on nothing, they'll end up just another channel on YouTube or BitChute or whatever, just another website that you click on. And they'll be lost in the millions and millions and millions of sites. It won't matter how many times Google pushes them to the top, because eventually Google will be like, okay, pay us thousands of dollars. And, these big companies will be like, well, we don't really have that money. Can you keep pushing us? And they'll just be like, no, there's more interesting content. We make more money on that. At some point, the money's it's going to eventually destroy all this wokeness, because they're going to be sick of losing it. And they're going to be sick of losing audience, and real storytellers will emerge. So anyhow, that's my ramble. Thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow. And in the meantime, smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Please check out my books. Links in the description. Wokistan, a novel, and the Pineys, books 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The contest is still going on. Read book 5 of the Pineys. First person in the comments to tell me what story the Piney story is a parody of. I guess I can give you another clue. They made at least 2 movies. 2 movies. An old movie like in the 60s, and then they made a remake a few years ago in the 2000s. They're both named the same thing. Good luck, Pineys.